Welcome back to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Sherry Rose. She is COO of Restoration One. Sherry's focus at Restoration One is on operations, strategy development, customer service experience for the franchise. This franchise has rapidly expanded to nearly 300 locations across the United States. Restoration One has become one of the fastest growing brands in that industry, earning numerous rankings in Entrepreneur, Inc., Global Franchise Times, and more. She oversaw operations during COVID as an essential business, which is something that's been challenging for all of us. Prior to joining Restoration One, Sherry worked for ServiceMaster. For 15 years, she served in various leadership and support roles for brands, including Terminix, ServiceMaster, Restore, and Mary Maids. Sherry graduated from Wheaton College with a bachelor's in psychology, and she and her family reside in Waco, Texas. So Sherry, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
We are so excited to get to know you better. We had a chance to talk the other day, Sherry, and one of the things that was particularly fascinating to me, you've had such a successful career. One would have thought that you had head down and you knew exactly where you were going. But is that really true?
Yeah, no, not true at all. I said it while we were talking, but I've said it to a lot of people, particularly people that ask for mentoring or just want to understand how you got somewhere. Everyone's looking for the formula or the classes that I took or those things. I am always surprised at where I am and what I get to do. And it's kind of evolved over time. I didn't grow up knowing people that did what I do. I didn't grow up really having lots of interaction with corporate environments. I just grew up in a family business and I thought I was going to be a teacher. So that's where I started. And so to be doing what I'm doing has just been this kind of evolution and just interaction with great people, opportunities that have just happened. And here I am. And, it's been a surprise, but a really great, blessed surprise.
What a fabulous journey.
Yeah, you grew up in an entrepreneurial family though, didn't you? So you're kind of a fish out of their water.
I am, yeah, literally. My mom and dad actually had a welding and steel supply business. My dad started it. It was what provided for the needs of our family. And so as one of four, we all ultimately worked in the business. You had to. Meaning there were two house phones, right? One was the house phone and one was the company phone. Mm-hmm. And when you sat down for dinner at 5:30 on the mark and the house phone rang, nobody moved. But if it was the business phone, everybody moved. Yeah. It was the lifeblood. And so it was just part of living. So I have a special place in my heart for, first of all, couples that work together and families, because I know what that's like. But it just was a unique way to grow up. And it was very, it was very hardworking. It was, no excuses. And my mother, as we got older, called us a team, right? We all had to do this as a team. So it was a great way to grow up. Very different from a lot of my friends.
Oh, yeah. My family was just the opposite. No entrepreneurial blood at all. And I'm this crazy entrepreneur. But here you came from this innovative entrepreneurial family, and you chose instead to go the corporate route and climb that corporate ladder, actually in many ways helping the entrepreneur become successful and build various companies. So talk to me a little bit about that process of getting there and how you discovered you're really this other person, not an entrepreneur. Tell us about that whole process.
Yeah, it's kind of a twist, isn't it? And the funny part of the story is I'm the oldest of four, and my sister and two brothers all have their own businesses. And so here I am, and I don't. And I've always said I just didn't have the stomach for it. It wasn't my calling. And I really always preferred to be behind the scenes helping, making it easier in my growing up years, making it easier for the family. I enjoyed that. And so I just never found myself wanting to be on that cutting edge. Now, what I thought I was going to do was be a teacher. So I was going to cut and paste, right? I was going to help kindergartners and first graders learn to read, and that's where I was going. And it was actually an aunt who today is a retired teacher who looked at me and she's like, "You're not going to be a teacher." Like, no way. And it was kind of like that feeling of, well, if I'm not going to be a teacher, what am I going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And it was then a series of events out of college that put me in business, and then first out in the field, and then ultimately in the corporate office. And so the corporate ladder, I didn't pursue the corporate ladder. The corporate ladder kind of presented itself. And actually, instead of climbing the rungs, I felt like I was kind of, for the first years in business, I felt like I was kind of pushed up the rungs, I just had people that would come, my first 13 years were at Jenny Craig as a startup company, and incredible women who would, tap me on the shoulder and say, "It's time to go do this over here." And my first, "Oh, I can't do that." And then, "Yeah, you can do it." And it kind of shoved me over there. And then I really loved this. And so it was this process of people seeing things in me that I couldn't name, but I knew they were things I liked to do and could do and loved to learn to do.
Oh, what a blessing. What a blessing that you had folks that saw in you what you couldn't yet see in yourself, and then have them push you, encourage you, like you said, sort of up that ladder until you did figure out, until you did believe, until you totally understood, here's my talent, here's my gifts.
Yeah. And so often, the ladder, we talked, I say often, life's not a straight line. I wish it were, because I'm an organized person, right? So I love straight lines. And I like efficiency and I like all those things. But there's something strange about working in your work life. And because you didn't know what the straight line was, it's like I've been the most flexible that I've been ever. Ask my kids if I'm not that flexible. And yet I feel like I've kind of bobbed and weaved through my career as people have come in and pushed me to do things, as opportunities have opened up. And I either found I really liked them, or it answered a question, I didn't like it. One of the most ironic things was I actually took the training director role at Jenny Craig. So after all those years out in the field, I come into the corporate office to lead training. You would think, Miss Teacher over here, that was going to be like just everything come together. Mm-hmm. It was my least favorite job. And so it taught me something, right? It taught me that I was too nosy for that job, that I liked the whole picture, and it wasn't fast-paced enough, and it wasn't messy enough to fix. And so here, I was going to cut and paste. Well, maybe I really was never going to do that or be happy long-term doing that.
Well, and I think that's such an important skill. And when you're young, starting off, you don't know yourself that well in terms of all those things. You don't have enough experience to eliminate things or to see yourself as a different ideal of what you grew up thinking that you were. So I think it's incredibly lucky and interesting that you had women who saw these qualities in you and urged you along, because a lot of times that doesn't happen. People don't want to fool with it, or they don't want to take the time, or they they feel threatened in different ways. So how lucky was that? Kind of a cultural thing there, or were you just really lucky?
Well, I think, at Jenny Craig, it was at the startup. I literally interviewed the day they opened the Boston market. And so you had this explosion happening. And so there were all these constant needs in a startup. And so they had an incredible ability to scout talent. And I remember, I'm like learning to be a weight loss consultant, because I was going to do this until I got a teaching job. Okay. I answered a blind ad. I was going to do this till I got a teaching job, because Miss Overachiever, threw in her teaching certificate at the end of her college, saying, "I'm not going to graduate without it." And I was preparing for something, and I was sitting in this office by myself, and there was a knock on the door, and a woman walked in, very tall and, competent, and she asked if she could sit down. I said, certainly. I had no idea who it was. And she starts talking to me. Come to find out, it's the chief operating officer of the company. And she had just come in from San Diego and was meeting people, little did I know, people that they were thinking had, they could groom. And she was basically casually interviewing me. And she left. I had no idea who it was. But again, just one of those women through the years that always saw bigger for me and for lots of other people. But my experience was saw bigger and just kept pushing me through the next door. And every time a door opened, my business world got bigger. Wow. Is really what happened.
What a gift. It's interesting as you describe it. I guess my question to you regarding that, are you doing similar now for others, women and otherwise, in terms of seeing talent, helping them express talent, reaching another level? Has that become part of what you do also now, or is it?
One of the things I love to do is build teams. And so part of building a team is seeing people and seeing them today, but also seeing clues of who they can be tomorrow.
Out there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I love to do that because I think that and it can be male or female, that just getting people to either know what they want, but to be able to name what they're good at and accept it. There are so many conversations that I've had, and with myself included, trying to talk yourself into being who you're not, right? Who people think you should be. And it's a little bit about getting a grip on who you are and what you are good at and building that out. And knowing your weaknesses and and putting people, for me, I've always put people in those spaces that aren't my strength, and they become my right-hand people because they kind of help my blind spots. But getting just that mentoring of and leading in, getting people to see who they are. Because as soon as people open up, when people kept putting me in these roles, they didn't just throw me in and say, good luck. I mean, a little bit maybe, but they put me in with confidence. Like, I know you can do this. It's either going to be messy, you're going to fail, but it's okay. I have your back. And as soon as I know that, I can roll because I can figure it out. I have the resources. I can work through people. I can read. I can do all kinds of things to figure things out. You put me in there in a way that you make me solid. You give me the confidence that I can do these things. I'll make it happen. And when I do that for other people, I find they can't. And it actually opens up honest conversations, because as soon as I can settle people down, then we can have good conversations about strengths and weaknesses and likes and dislikes, and we can get a lot farther. So yes, those conversations happen all day, really.
Wow.
It's so important. My daughter and I are reading a book together that was recommended by Laura Spalding, actually, and it's called Can't Hurt Me. And I'm only 3 chapters. Have you read it?
No, but it's a great title.
It's a great title. And it's, he talks about forcing yourself to look clearly at yourself and own who you actually are, warts and all. And he doesn't say this, but I've started thinking about weaknesses in terms of not being a negative. I think so many of us don't want to admit, oh, I'm not as good at this. Like, I'm not great at the visual parts of things. I'm really good with the words, and that kind of thing. But I think there's a point in life where you don't want to admit those things, especially as you're younger. I think the older we get, the more we're like, I just can't even. But I think that's an interesting thing that you're having those conversations, because those things are real. You can't be good at everything. And being able to build teams and bring up people who are a little less experienced than you, or maybe younger in the process, to understand that it's okay to have to focus on that strength and let someone else take over that weakness and trying to do it all. I think some of us do that a lot as we're maturing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it really is an evolving process to figure out who you are, what you like to do, and accept, to your point, accept your weaknesses. Yeah, there's that whole body of thinking that says you should really be, developing your weaknesses. And I believe that to a certain degree. I mean, I think we should, but I would much rather drive toward my strengths.
Mm-hmm.
It's a heck of a lot more fulfilling. And then you can't hurt me, right? At least I can have some level of confidence that, at least my energy level is different when I'm working in my strength. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and to be able to figure it out while opportunities are unfolding around you,
Mm-hmm.
and to make decisions. It's not a straight line. You kind of have to bob and weave and roll with it, and then hopefully you end in a role that you're well suited for and you're happy in.
One of the ways you described it to us is you're building these teams and having them get a clearer idea of who they are, sometimes through you pointing it out and building these teams. You use the term both feet on the ground. I love that term because I get a visual of being solid and I'm in my own self, and I can run, I can jump, I can move in any direction if both feet are on the ground. But if I don't know me and I don't know my role and I don't know where I'm going, I'm not both feet on the ground. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Or describe to us what you mean by this both feet on the ground kind of idea.
I know personally that I can be in the most stressful of situations, but if the person or people I work for have allowed me to have my feet on the ground, right, I can do just about anything. And I call it not being on a tilt, right? Like, wondering what's behind you, what's coming around you. When my feet are on the ground, I can take risks. I can be creative. I can try things and fail, but fix them. I can do all kinds of things because I'm solid. At the end of the day, I have the trust of the people who have given me responsibility to figure it out. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure it out. I find the same to be true with any team that I work within. As soon as we all know how we're going to interact, like how do we play the game as a team, right? And what the roles and responsibilities are, then we can pretty much figure anything out. And I've got your back. We can figure this out. We can talk candidly, and we can face things the way they are, and we don't have to worry as a team that we're putting ourselves at risk here, because life is messy. Business is even messier. People interactions are always messy, right? Because we all are coming at it at different times and whatever. It's just fraught with having the potential for issues. But if we all have our feet on the ground and we know what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and that we're going to move forward, and that we all have each other's back to do our best, I just think people do better. I do better. So that, that's just been kind of a hallmark of the way I like to work, and the way I like to work.
I love this. Love this. I want to be on your team.
Yay! It's a fun team. I always tell people we're going to have so much fun.
Let's go. Let's go. As an entrepreneur myself, I have strong players and weak players on my team. And I can tell you what you just described. When I have to turn something to someone who isn't playing full bore or isn't fully in their strength, right? Their feet aren't solid because they're not as capable as they thought or I thought. I feel tilted. It's like I don't have this full faith or trust in where this person's going or where we're going together. So just as a leader, that idea of having both of my feet on the ground, because I have a team that have both their feet on the ground and we have each other's back. I mean, so like my blood pressure just went down by 10 points just talking to you. It's like,
Yeah, and I found that, the big bad word feedback, I just find that in environments like that, it has not been difficult over the years to have pretty direct feedback because there's enough deposited, right, in a positive way that people trust your motivation. Like they trust your motive of the conversation. And honestly, again, it's not that you never have the tough conversations, that everything's, fabulous. That's not it at all. But people do respect the conversation, and it's not as hard to start or get into or get to a conclusion when you have been working that way.
I love that. I love that. So communication is so key. But shifting gears, because I don't want to run out of time for this, I do want to talk to you about something that's very important to you, which is being a working mom and going through the phases of life. I think that's something that would be critical for our viewers to hear you discuss, because it's such a challenge for all of us who have raised kids while working.
It is. One of the things that has become and was important to me is, well, let me back up. It was easy to work at the startup of Jenny Craig with no kids, right? It was just so easy. We're newly married and we're just, zipping and zooming and then all of a sudden your life completely changes and you have this sweet baby. And from the beginning for me, there was nothing about my job as fabulous as all my jobs have been. I never wanted to look back at the end of my life and regret that I had shortchanged the people in my life that matter the most. And those would be my husband, our sons, and my family. Because at the end, it really does, sadly in 2002, my dad passed away, and that we were in California, and that was the reason I left Jenny Craig. I was not going to get a phone call 3,000 miles away and take our little sons and go say goodbye like that. And so I resigned and went home and spent the last year helping and enjoying that time. And, at the time, I thought, well, if you got that much talent, there's always room for talent, right? Like either I'm going to get back into the workforce or I'm not. But it never mattered. I just felt like it paled. And so, our children, we've ebbed and flowed. My career has ebbed and flowed. We've made different choices over time based on life stage. And I just found as my kids got older, and today they're out of our home and we're empty nesters again, without the energy to zip and zap like we did way back when, but freedom. But I find more and more young moms seeking advice, and my advice is always the same. There is no career choice today that is more important than reading a bedtime story tonight. And again, we all have to make choices. We are providing for our families. We're making those choices, so we have to be wise. But at the end of the day, it's such a short season. And you don't realize how short till you're at the end and you're looking back and you're like, wow, the days were long, but the years were short. I mean, it really went so quickly. And so I never wanted my story at the end to be, wow, she was this incredible, career woman. That's been an incredible bonus. But I want the love and pride of my family, that they don't feel that they were sacrificed because of it. And that's always my advice. Never do something today. You can always take a temporary sidestep if you have to somewhere, because there's always room for talent. I'm always looking for talent, right? It's like, if it were that easy to hire talent, we wouldn't always be looking for great talent. Right. So it's out there, and you can be flexible, and sometimes you have to be flexible.
Well, and do you think, I was thinking while you were talking about COVID and all of us working remotely so much more now, and there's always a blessing and a curse, because people with school-age children struggle to maintain both working and making sure their lessons are done. My senior is self-sufficient, so I don't have that issue, but it's been nice. I mean, and I work from home anyway, but it's been nice for some people to have that time to stop in the middle of the day and have lunch with their child. Or, I mean, we've even gotten in the pool. If I have a break in the day and we want to take a swim at lunch and then I get back to it, it just, do you think that the flexibility that we've all been allowed is something that businesses are going to recognize as a positive going, like when this pandemic calms down? I think so many people have valued that time at home.
I think so. I think, you know, in any negative, there's always a positive. And one of the observations that we've had is just this time with family. And it does kind of, it just skinnies down your priorities, doesn't it? It's like suddenly you're like, okay, we are going to eat dinner because we can't go out to dinner. You know, like you're making different choices. And yeah, I hope so. I think that it can be great for kids, and you know, just a great touchstone for working moms and dads. That, you know, it's always a balance. It's never perfect. We all try our best. But the extra time is nice, isn't it?
It's worth it.
Nice. And I think some employers have begun to realize that people can produce at home.
That's right.
It can be done. Because I've worked with a couple of people who really, really resisted it. Thinking that you weren't going to be productive or accountable or whatever. And I think they're finding surprisingly that to them that people can actually be a grown up and do it. So I'm hopeful that the flexibility, that would be one positive that continues. But how have you all handled the pandemic in terms of your business?
Well, you know, disaster restoration is one of the essential services. And so I actually came in June and started my position here. And the team and the franchisees have been amazing. You know, different franchisees in different locations had state and city issues to deal with. Some states were shut down completely and other states weren't. So that varied by franchisee. It was interesting to talk to some of the franchisees who had really difficult shutdowns. And, you know, a couple of them said, you know, I felt bad. Sorry for myself for a couple of weeks. And then I realized I need to figure this out. And then they did figure it out. So I would say, you know, we put in a disinfection program that we were able to do both residentially and commercially, which helped a lot, especially national accounts who think of places like, you know, Walgreens, et cetera, those places where consumers needed to go in. And then houses were still flooding, right? And there were still things happening that had to be dealt with. So, you know, this is an industry where our franchisees and our technicians understand disaster and understand having to flex with whatever situation they find themselves in. So they were really, as a team, able to pivot and make it through. And the good news today is we have lots of positive indicators of economies bouncing back. So we're happy to see that.
Exactly. You mentioned something that I thought was interesting that I wanted to echo, which is you are in a business where the franchisees understand disaster. And so they, in and of themselves, know how to be flexible and quickly address challenges. And that's a wonderful attribute to have is, okay, I need to zip and zag and zoom and roll or all of those things that you were, because this is just yet another thing. And I just need to be flexible around that. And it sounds like you and your team have handled that well. So I have one question because we do have to wrap up here, but I do have one question. I love your visuals that you have given me. So I think you have two books in you, or maybe it's the same book.
Okay.
One entitled Zip, Zap, and Zoom Your Way to Success.
Oh, okay.
Because you're good at that, right?
I'm writing it down. Yes.
But the one I really like is when you said bob, weave, and roll. So I think you've got a couple of books in you, girl, where you can teach people this flexibility and how to build this team and have that level of adaptability and still stay focused. And equally important, to understand life and business is about seasons.
It is about seasons.
It's about seasons. You know, and sometimes we're in a season of being a mama, and sometimes we're in a season of being an empire builder, it's seasons, and we need to be okay with that.
Yep.
So how do people get hold of you, Sherry, if they want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about your concept, how would they do that?
Well, certainly they can reach out on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, and of course, Restoration One has its own website and phone number, and of course, you can reach me. You can message me on LinkedIn as well. So, but Restoration One is a great place to start to learn about our company. We also have opportunities for people who are interested in buying franchises, and this is a great franchise for husbands and wives, women and men. So, if someone's interested in serving their community, this is a great franchise to think about.
It is indeed. You do good work. You help a lot of people in these individual communities. So you're making a huge difference.
All right. Well, Sherry, thank you so much for your time. We've so enjoyed talking to you, and I think there's a lot of things we can pull out to learn as we go forward. And good luck dealing with the rest of the pandemic.
I know.
Hopefully it will go by soon. But we will be in touch with you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Sherry.
Bye now.
Bye.